Hello friends, welcome to the second episode of the series that I call Recipes That I Want My Kids to Remember. Today we are making chili. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. Welcome back everybody. And if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm so glad to have all of you here today. We're going to be making some chili today. I do realize that all families make this differently, and in no way am I saying that it needs to be done in this way. This is only an option of a way to do it. But if my kids would like chili to taste as it usually does when we have it at home, they're going to have to follow this recipe. I will also be making cornbread to accompany our chili. I will also make rice, but I'm not going to have a recipe for that. I would just say follow the directions on the package of the rice that you get. Well, I think that's it. Let's not waste any time. Let's get started. For the chili, you will need these ingredients. Starting on the left, we have some oil, 1.25 pounds of ground beef, some cumin, chili powder, garlic powder. Now looping around to the bottom, salt, an onion, black beans, a can of tomato paste, and a green bell pepper. Alrighty, my friends, the first thing we are going to do is cut up the bell pepper and the onion and get that cooking in a pot with some oil. Now that we've got the peppers and the onions in this pot here, I'm going to put in about 2 teaspoons of oil. It doesn't have to be exact. Honestly, just put in whatever you think is right. But I do want to give you a measurement to start with, and 2 teaspoons is a good measurement because I need more than a teaspoon, but not quite a whole tablespoon. I'm going to be adding a few shakes of salt onto here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the heat on and I'm just going to cook this until it is softened. All right, at this point, the peppers and the onions are in good shape. We're going to be putting the meat in now. I have been thawing this in the microwave because I did not remember to take it out of my freezer earlier. If you're wondering what I do, I take a 5-pound log of ground beef and I cut it into fourths and I squish it into these lunch meat containers, and it divides equally into 4 that way. And that's how I know it's 1 1/4 pound of ground beef. You're just gonna break up that meat and let it cook into the peppers and the onions. There's too much oil in here for my liking. I should say, not oil. This is beef fat, but there's too much for my liking, so I'm going to scoop some of it out. You can't really see what I'm doing. I have a little bowl here. I'm just going to scoop it into that bowl. Wow, that is a lot. Yeah, so there is the fat that I removed from it. At this point, I'm going to turn the heat down because this is going way too hot. We are now ready to add everything else into our pan here. Can we see anything through all that smoke? I think we're good. Okay, so first things first, let's get all the spices in. This is about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. And then in this bowl we have half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cumin, and 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Give that a stir. If you wanted to know the percentage of ground beef that I had in here, it is 85-15. So if you get a leaner cut, such as 93, you won't even need to worry about draining that fat. Okay, so this is, I'm pouring in this can of beans now, including all of the juices that are in it. Then I will be filling this can of beans up with water and adding that in as well. I should have said I will be filling the empty can of beans with water. There we go. Now I will be putting this can of tomato paste inside of it, the contents of the tomato paste. The size of the can is a 6-ounce can. And I'm just using, this is like an old kid's knife, but you can use a small spoon or anything like that to get it out. I just wanted to use something plastic so it wouldn't be quite so loud. Because metal on metal is, ugh, you know, that kind of hurts your ears. I try not to do it. All right, so now we got everything in there. Give that a stir. All right, options I would like to tell you about while we're stirring here. If you don't want black beans, you can use any kind of beans, whatever you want, whatever you prefer. When I was a kid, we used kidney beans, but I discovered as an adult, I actually very much preferred black beans. I would probably also love navy beans in here because they have a very mild taste. But you use whatever you want. Some people get the can of beans that says chili beans. You can use that. You can use pinto beans. And then as far as the protein, there are options for the protein as well. Ground turkey, ground chicken, ground pork, whatever your favorite flavor is. Or substitute it with another bean if you'd prefer it without any animal product in it. Okay, so that is pretty much it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to set it on low and let it simmer. Let it simmer for about 30 minutes. After those 30 minutes, we will taste it and adjust for seasoning, and then we'll let it go for another 30 minutes. I like to let it cook for at least an hour. If you're short on time, you know, just let it go for half an hour. But I like to let it go for an hour, and you can let it go as long as you want. I do not think that there is a maximum. Just keep it on low because you don't want it to burn to the bottom of your pan. Let's see. I think that's it. At this point, you can make whatever you want to eat your chili with. Whether that'll be rice, whether that'll be pasta. What else? Feel free to comment below what you like to have with your chili. I know my in-laws like fritos. Some people like cornbread. If you want to know what I'm making, I will be making rice and cornbread. And I'll also be shredding some cheddar cheese. We're going to go ahead and make the cornbread now. For the cornbread, you will need these ingredients. 1 cup of milk, 1/3 cup of melted butter, 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of cornmeal, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. I have lined this 8x8 square baking dish with parchment paper. You can also use a round one, and you don't have to use parchment paper, but you do need to grease it somehow. Before we get started, go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. All right, we're going to add all our dry ingredients. 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of cornmeal. I hope I called it cornmeal with the ingredient list. If not, I better fix that. 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Be sure it's baking powder, not soda. Baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And give those a stir. Okay, now we're going to add in our milk, all the wet stuff. Milk, melted butter, and 1 egg. give that a good stir. Make sure everything is incorporated. Make sure that egg is broken up. And that is it. I mean, that's it. That's all we needed to do. Now we're going to pour it into our pan here. Lovely. I'm just going to spread it with this knife here that I used to cut my butter with. And that goes into the 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 25 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. As always, everyone's oven is different. After 25 minutes, this cornbread is done. I've already actually stuck a toothpick in it to make sure it was cooked throughout. The chili has finished cooking. I didn't have to add any more seasonings to it from what I initially put in. I'm going to show you the other items too. Here is the cornbread, and there is the rice. Oh, I don't have the cheese out. Hang on. All right, and there is the cheese. I took that out as well now. And that concludes this episode of Recipes I Want My Kids to Remember, and this was our family's chili.